Radio, Free Bartlesville, June 4th, 2005. Now, this morning in the 6 o'clock hour, I had the opportunity to hear something on the local radio, and it was a statement by Mr. Kevin Potter, a snide remark that he was born in Kenya, referring to Obama. I said, I could do the research, but maybe this would be a good one for AI. And I have the following from Gemini DeepSeek, thanks to Google.
Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today we're tackling a subject that, it's generated a lot of questions over the years.
Mm-hmm. Despite a whole lot of verified information being out there.
Exactly. So we're doing a deep dive into the actual documented facts, the legal reality surrounding Barack Obama's U.S. citizenship.
Yeah, our goal here is really just to cut through some of that noise.
And lay out what the verified evidence actually shows. We've gathered the sources, official documents, court cases, fact checks, historical records.
Right. We want to walk you through what's been confirmed, what's verified.
Okay, so let's start at the foundation, the legal part. What does natural-born citizen actually mean for a president in the U.S.?
Well, the Constitution uses the phrase, but it doesn't explicitly define it. The long-standing interpretation, though, especially backed by the Supreme Court, ties it to citizenship acquired right at birth.
Okay.
And the absolute key here is the 14th Amendment.
Right, the one enacted after the Civil War.
That's the one. It establishes just soli.
Yeah.
It basically means right of the soil. The principle is, pretty straightforward. If you're born on U.S. soil, you are a U.S. citizen.
Simple as that.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
The Supreme Court really drove this home in an 1898 case, United States v. Wong Kim Ark. And what's crucial, and often gets mixed up in discussions, is that under this principle, just soli, your parent citizenship doesn't actually matter for your citizenship if you were born here in the U.S.
So even if a parent is a citizen of another country?
Correct. If the birth happens on U.S. soil, that confers U.S. citizenship, period.
Wow.
The location in the U.S. is the determinant factor.
Okay, that makes sense. So the law points to the place of birth, which takes us to Hawaii and the official documents.
Precisely. The birth certificates, these have obviously been, central to the whole conversation.
Right. There was the first one released?
Yes, back in 2008, the campaign released the certification of live birth. Some people call it the short form.
And that was examined.
It was. Factcheck.org, the nonpartisan group, they physically examined that document back then, confirmed its authenticity.
But that didn't quite all the questions, did it? People wanted more, the long form.
That's right. The demand grew.
Yeah.
So in 2011, President Obama requested and then authorized the release of a certified copy of his original certificate of live birth, the detailed one.
Straight from the Hawaii Department of Health.
Correct. And this long-form document, it contained the key specifics.
Right.
Full name, Barack Hussein Obama, the second, date of birth, August 4th, 1961. And crucially, place of birth, Honolulu on the island of Oahu. It even named the hospital Kapiolani Maternity and Gynecological Hospital.
And it mentioned his parents.
Yes, it noted his mother was born in Wichita, Kansas, confirming her U.S. citizenship, and his father in Kenya. But again, under just soli, the father's citizenship is irrelevant to the child's citizenship acquired by birth in the U.S.
And Hawaii officials stood by this document.
Absolutely. Multiple officials, including the health director at the time, Loretta Fuddy, and the state registrar, Dr. Alvin Onaka, went on record multiple times confirming the authenticity of that official record.
So the state itself verified its own document. Was there anything else, independent ways to check this from, say, back in 1961?
Yes, and this is, I think, a really compelling part of the story. There's contemporaneous evidence.
Meaning evidence from the actual time of his birth?
Exactly. Birth announcements listing Barack Obama were published in Honolulu's two major newspapers at the time.
Wow, okay.
Honolulu Advertiser and the Honolulu Star Bulletin. Just days after he was born in August 61. Think about that public notices from the time, confirming a birth in Hawaii.
That's pretty strong. Any other sources like that?
There is. His father's immigration file, maintained by the U.S. government, also noted his birth location as Hawaii. So you have separate records created decades before the political controversy, all pointing to the same fact.
Okay, so official docs, verified by the state, backed up by newspaper announcements and immigration records from the time. What about the specific counterclaims, like fake documents or misquotes?
Right. Those were looked into very closely by fact checkers. The alleged Kenyan birth certificates, for example, were debunked pretty quickly.
How so?
Well, often they contained basic factual errors, like referring to the Republic of Kenya, but Kenya didn't become a republic until 1964, years after 1961. Simple mistakes like that exposed them as forgeries.
Interesting. What about the grandmother quote?
Yes, the claim about his paternal step-grandmother. When you look at the full context, the actual transcripts, she clarifies. She explicitly says he was born in America, Hawaii.
So context was key there.
Absolutely. And even little things, like apparent anomalies people saw on scans of the long-form certificate. Experts looked at those and explained them as typical digital artifacts from scanning, just noise from the process, not evidence of tampering.
Okay. So despite all this evidence, official, contemporaneous, fact-checked, there were still dozens of lawsuits, right?
Oh, yes. Many, many lawsuits filed all across the country, challenging his eligibility, his citizenship.
And what happened with those?
This is really crucial. Every single one was dismissed.
Everyone. Why were they dismissed? Did the courts look at the birth certificate?
No, that's the point. They were dismissed primarily for procedural reasons, mainly two. Lack of legal standing. The people suing couldn't show they were personally harmed in a way the law recognizes.
Okay. And the second reason?
They were often deemed non-justiciable political questions. Basically, the court said, this isn't really our lane. It's something for voters or other branches of government to decide. The key takeaway is no court ever invalidated the birth certificate or found reason to doubt his citizenship based on the evidence. The cases just didn't proceed on the merits.
Right. So let's try and wrap this up. We've got the legal standard, just SOLI, birthright citizenship.
Check.
We have official Hawaiian birth certificates, short and long form, verified by Hawaii itself.
Check. Details like date, hospital, location, all there.
Corroborated by independent evidence from 1961 newspaper announcements, immigration files.
Check. Powerful corroboration.
Specific counterclaims debunked by fact-checkers looking at verifiable facts.
Check. Forgeries, misquotes, scan artifacts, explained.
And finally, dozens of lawsuits all dismissed on procedural grounds without any court finding fault with his citizenship status.
Check. That's the picture painted by the verified evidence and the legal record.
So the conclusion from all this verified information seems pretty clear.
Based purely on the documented facts and U.S. law, yes. Barack Hussein Obama was born in Honolulu, Hawaii on August 4th, 1961. That makes him a natural-born citizen under the established legal framework.
Okay, so here's maybe a final thought for you, the listener. Considering this weight of verified evidence, official, contemporaneous, legal, plural, what does the persistence of questions, the refusal by some to accept it, tell us?
Yeah, what does that reveal about how information and maybe misinformation spreads and takes hold in our society today?
Something definitely worth thinking about.
We'll take that one step further and call this a recycling of rage. And when it's necessary to tap into two Democratic presidents ago, I guess Joe Biden's not good enough. Now you got to go and tap into more Obama rage in order to fuel a particular crowd. I think that says something, but I'm also going to bring up the 9th commandment. You shall not bear false witness against your neighbor. Thank you for listening. Radio Free Bartlesville, brought to you by Dendritics with excerpts from Google AI.